Good afternoon, Tony Dottino here. I am the founder of the USA Memory Championship and the president of Dottino Consulting Group, and have been studying and researching the human brain for more than 30 years. And it's been fascinating to see the differences in the research projects that have come out over those years and the lessons it's teaching us about our own thinking capacities. And as the growth of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and various mental disorders that are impacting our bodily functions are growing, it's a concern to let people know that there's more that you can do in your life at any age to help minimize some of these. And to that point, Michael Dottino gets me a book a little over a week ago that he tells me is on the New York Times bestseller list. And having reading it and been reading it, I can understand why. It is, I call it a hope for all of us. And it has a section in here that I've been reading today on Alzheimer's, dementia, Huntington's disease. And it's just got me so fired up in terms of what we do with memory skills and the broad range of memory skills that our mental athletes have to go through in order to compete in the USA Memory Championships. And what it's got me thinking, but my goodness, if we took all of the mental athletes that have competed in the Memory Championship and tracked their mental processing, especially if they've continued to practice in some of the memory disciplines that we take them through, would that not be a phenomenal study that they're talking about as being preventative in terms of minimizing or eliminating some of these diseases? And as I'm reading some of the pages here in a chapter on Alzheimer's, if I can just get you the neurodegenerative diseases can be prevented. My patients freak out when they lose their car keys or their phones from time to time, and I remind them that it does not mean they have a disease. I talk about that all the time. It doesn't mean you have a disease. You forget your cars and you lose your cell phone, and you've got so many things going on. And here comes this book, comes along, and I'm often reading it. It's one of those books for me that I'm not putting down very often. So here comes the section I'm reading today. It talks about there are validated tests that cover the domain of cognition. So validated tests meaning there are things that we can do that are validated that have an impact on our mental functions, cognition, which includes now memory. So cognition and memory, it makes an impact. They have to have an executive function. They have to focus attention, processing, how fast can you go through things, your verbal fluency, how quick can you get words, and we do what we call word association exercise, and our ability to recall a list of words. And we talk about the list of words that they do in the MOCA test that they do to identify early cognitive impairment, mental impairment. And I'm like, this still keeps driving me crazy because there's skills you can teach. It goes on to talk about recalling a phrase in a paragraph or linking a name to a face. And then spatial memory, locating items in a room, or how many animals can you name in a minute. So I'm reading this and I'm like, God, this is our USA Memory Championship. These are the skills that we're teaching people, starting with, pictures of people, and can you remember their names? And what's the skill that we can teach people that this would suggest build cognitive reserve, builds mental functions and capabilities that I don't know if it will minimize dementia in the future. But as the book goes on to say, we've been working on this. The initial studies of Alzheimer's back in 1906. And then we took a vacation for almost 50 plus years and revved it back up in 1960. And we spent the last 60 years chasing plaque and amyloids in our brain and finding out, well, reversing those doesn't help it. And so now, well, what else are we looking for? And I'm saying, my God, 24 years of doing the USA Memory Championship, it may be sitting right in front of us because recalling a list of words, our mental athletes have to go through 125 words in 15 minutes. And many of them use the loci method, which is here that talks about spatial location of items in a room. It's all of these things that we teach people in order to compete in the memory championship, or that they take upon themselves learning from YouTubes or books that they may read, or somebody that may have taught them, a coach that they have found, all hit back into these principles of cognition and memory and paying attention and focus. And so one of the first things we learn is you have to focus. First, do you believe that you can improve your memory? Then are you willing to take the time to practice the skills in doing that? And off we go. Let's compete, see where you go. And so I'm thinking about this as I'm reading this today. Can we actually take the mental athletes that have been in the USA Memory Championship, and some of them for a number of years, some of our champions that go out and teach this stuff, can we then use that as a study to test the prevention of some of these diseases? So as I'm reading this today, I'm like, God, how do we get this messaging out to people? And how do we get them to realize that from 1906, we've been within 100 years kicking around this whole thing of Alzheimer's, and we may have had found 24 years ago a way of around it, especially when it talks about the tests that cover the things that we already do in the USA Memory Championship. And so if we could get the people that have been doing this for more than 5 years, I would say, and now get them to continue to do that throughout their life, would that not be a phenomenal study of a paper, a clinical trial, of really seeing what people are doing when they compete in the USA Memory Championship, forgetting the Memory Championship, but what they're doing in terms of building cognitive reserve. So that's got me, and how do we do that is really what my mind is on today. How do we get this back in terms of people? I will try to contact this author and see if I can make some inroads in having him learn a little bit more about the Memory Championship. But this goes on. The evidence suggests that activities that present varied challenges requiring thinking and processing are more productive at building and maintaining cognitive reserve. This is a good one. This is not a good one because a lot of people think this, right? Simply doing a crossword puzzle seems only to make people better at doing crosswords. The same goes for movement reserve. Dancing appears to be more effective than walking and or delaying symptoms of Parkinson's because it involves more complex movement. God, we get people to know these things and what a difference it can be. Now, here's the other problem. Everybody wants an answer like yesterday, and here we are since 1906 talking about Parkinson's, over 100 years. But do you want to wait? As the author turns around, but do you want to wait? Do you want to wait to see what somebody else has done, or might you take a more preventative approach and say, you know what, I'm willing to be one of those early adopters of something that may change the course of clinical treatments for various brain diseases and things. The more networks and subways that we have built over our lifetime, or developing the skills such as speaking a language or playing an instrument, the more resistant to decline we will tend to be. So here again, in this section on prevention of, the doctor here, Dr. Peter Attia, I hope I pronounce this well right, Dr. Attia talks about, well, let's take a different approach. Let's not keep looking for the clinical aspects through pharmacology. Let's see if there are things that we can do on the mental side of things. Let's start with exercising and movement. Let's look at the different functions of the human body and figure out how movement and exercise can have an impact on those. Let's put our brain through its own exercise. We're exercising our muscles. Why are we not exercising our mental capacities? And so as I read this on page 191, I highlight this thing on the top of page 191. We're looking for attention, processing speed, verbal fluency, memory, recalling a list of words, recalling a phrase, linking a name, spatial memories. And I'm saying, God, do we not challenge our mental athletes? We give them 100 and 200 words in 15 minutes. We give them 150 pictures of people and they get 15 minutes. Do we not encourage them to build their speed? And here's what we have learned. The mental athletes that are practicing and performing these types of skills are doing phenomenally well. So when you look at spatial and you give people a sequencing and a shuffled deck of cards, when we first started this, we didn't even get a whole deck of cards in 5 minutes. And now we see people breaking the deck of cards and remembering and recalling it in less than a minute through practicing their different memory techniques. We see people going through a list of words to where they can get through a list of words of more than 100 in 15 minutes. And you say, is this not what this book is all about? So that's my excitement for you this afternoon, and I've got more to read, so I'm going to keep on reading, but as I do, I am so glad that Michael got me this book and handed it to me and said, hey, Dad, I think you'll find this interesting to read. And I am finding it more than interesting. It's exciting, and I am absolutely thrilled to be reading it. And I think there's a lot of good lessons for us here, and for my mind, I tie it, integrate it into what we've been doing for 24 years and saying, wouldn't these people make a great study in what we're able to do? Which, in closing, excites me about the work that Michael has been doing with Columbia University and their students in teaching him some of the memory techniques that we're just talking about here on this broadcast today. See you on Friday. Have a good week. We're halfway through it.